Zebo going on his own. He gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Carberry gets over the line. Try for Munster.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 45, the Red 78 here on the Rugby channel. And with me as always is Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
Hi Quinny, how are you keeping?
I'm not too bad. It was obviously a great occasion last Thursday night. We talk a little bit about that, but obviously a bit of sad news with Munster Rugby with the passing of my former manager and friend, I would say, Jerry Holland. Jerry had an illness and he was, battling for probably a long time, and unfortunately he passed away on early Sunday morning, and it was a big shock to everyone. I put a tweet out late last night because I wasn't really sure yesterday should we even do the podcast, how I felt about that, but it was obviously very, very sad and a shock to everyone, particularly all my teammates. I know to his family, obviously, Cork Con Rugby Club, who he's an integral part of, and that was he's one of his big loves in his life, Jerry, and just a contribution he made to rugby. But he was a team manager who the players loved. We got on great with him. People were, particularly at the very start of the kind of journey that a lot of us would have been on in 96, 97 onwards for a couple of years. And just to get to know the guy over the years and obviously be wary of him, because your team manager has to instill a bit of discipline into a wild group of young fellas coming together and going on that whole European journey. But it was very sad for everyone. Jerry was only 66, and particularly to Billy, his son as well, and the rest of his family. It was obviously, very, very sad news.
Yeah, look, it's a huge void, I think, within not only Munster Rugby, but you spoke about it already about Cork Con and to his family. Fortunate to have met him a couple of times, and an absolute gentleman. And it's only when you kind of, the next generation down from you, and you get to see and speak to Billy, that you realise that probably aura, that sense of true Munster was passed down to the next generation. So yeah, look, our thoughts and sympathies are with the Holland family, Cork Con, and the wider Munster family, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, and I think for the players who played in that kind of generation and obviously winning the Heineken Cups and all that kind of stuff, Jerry was very much a part of that through the whole journey. Looked after all our parents when they were looking for tickets, and they all had great friendships, and he was unbelievably popular, but looked after the players. I think one of when I signed my first contract in 97, I think we were up and down to Cork training, in and out to Limerick, obviously. Every couple of days we'd be in either Cork or Limerick training, and I was living in Tip. And I remember after a couple of months we were asked, did we have any expenses? And I put in my expenses for mileage to Cork and the driving and the fuel expenses, basically. So I put them in for a couple of months, and I was only on a part-time contract at the start. So Jerry called me aside one stage and said, Quinny, there's a problem here. I need to talk to you about the expenses. And I was like thinking, God, did I put in too much here, or is there a problem getting them paid? And he said, look, there is a problem, but I'm a bit bemused at the amount of expenses you put in for driving to Cork. I said, oh, right. And he said, yeah, he says, you don't actually have a car. And because I was getting a lift down with Johnny Lacey all the time, and I'd often get out of the car and say hello to Hall when he was in the yard in Musgrave Park and stuff. So, but he was just marking my card, but then told me it's grand, sure, we'll put him in. You could do it a few bob anyway. So I remember thinking at the start, he's sound out and he's great crack. But he always had players back. He was a real players manager, do you know what I mean? And I think because obviously he'd coached the team, he'd coached Munster from 94 to 97, played for Munster, played for Ireland, and even in 96 when I went to some Munster training sessions, Jerry was one of the coaches and he would have called me up to Munster. So I just always I just clicked with him straight away, and all the players did. You know, if there was any bit of messing that went away on tour or anything, you know, Hall would just say discipline, and that became a kind of a running joke that you know, we talk about Hall and the discipline. He just keep an eye on everyone, but he was a great rugby man as well and a great friend, and it's obviously you know, as I said, a really kind of tough situation for all his family, friends, and for the rugby community as well, because so many people within the game in Ireland knew Jerry well, and of course it's on the back of Paul McNaughton's passing last week as well, who was team manager for a couple of years when I was with Ireland. Another very popular guy, and so two legends of the game gone in the last number of days, which is sad. And it was ironic, both of them were team managers. Obviously played for Ireland, both of them, and they were an integral part of a lot of players' careers that I know anyway. So very difficult and very sad. So I didn't know whether we do the podcast or not, but you know, Jerry.
The manager for me is probably the most important person within that kind of coaching group, because they're the kind of the ones that, as you say, like, you can have the crack with discipline, sort out the parents, sort out you. It's kind of understated. I don't think we give them enough kudos.
I think
you know what I mean. And when they're good at their job,
a team manager with any sporting team is really important, because they're the ones that kind of are looking from the outside at the coaches as well, how they're dealing with players. You know, keeping an eye out for guys on and off the field. And I think Jerry was brilliant. He was amazing at that. He wasn't just brilliant. He would always keep in touch with people, and he had a great empathy and compassion for the individual, and would check in with people a lot. And that's why the players had great respect for him. You wouldn't cross him. And he was big on discipline as regards, you know, how you behave going through airports and hotels, off the field. So, you know, he was and again, a lot of people had great respect for him, and you can see the comments online from you know, people talking about Jerry, and you know, everyone was saying he was a great rugby man, but a gentleman as well. So he will be sorely missed, and it's going to be tough on everybody. But his contribution to not just people's rugby careers but people's lives as well was immense, and I know that from a personal point of view. And you know, our sympathies to the McNaughton family as well. Two great rugby men. There's a great shot actually online that I think Rob Henderson put up of Axel and Jerry Holland after we won the Heineken Cup in 2006. It was a real kind of iconic picture, and it just sums up the happiness in both their faces. Was really apparent from that. But anyway, and I know Jerry watched the game I spoke to Billy last night. Jerry watched the game last Thursday night, and even in his illness, he was animated and excited, and he was in hospital watching it and very unwell. But he'd have been
delighted to see it in court.
Yeah, he was delighted. Yeah, he was delighted, and you know, but Jerry was, you know, sometimes there's a bit of debate about the Munster Limerick Cork kind of situation, that divide. He was one of the people who kind of facilitated in 2004 when we lost to Wasps. A number of the senior players in that group who were there for a number of years, sitting down and kind of debating how are we going to get better? Do we need to go to one centre? How would this work? And you know, Jerry was a staunch Cork conman and a Cork true and true. He was Cork through and through, but his best interests were always what was best for, you know, his goal always was what was best for Munster rugby. So he laid down brilliant foundations. Declan Kidney, Niall O'Donovan were coaches there for a number of years. He was manager under Alan Gaffney as well. So I'm sure lots of people will recount lots of happy, funny stories today, because Hull was a great character, and as I said, he'll be sorely missed. On the game last Thursday night, it was a special occasion, and Munster won 28-14. it's been very apparent and obvious that it's been a tough start to the season. I just think jumping right to the end, to see those young players with a smile on their faces, to see the excitement, to see them doing the lap of honour, was special. Without getting carried away and putting it in context, obviously there was no league points at stake, and but just to see the happiness and the joy from the players and the crowd, loving it as well, and the atmosphere there, it was really special. Munster won 28-14. I don't think any of us are going to get carried away and think this is going to sort out all our problems. But I put a tweet out yesterday, Niamh, asking, can Munster build on this? And where did they go to from here? You can read out some of the tweets.
Yeah, so obviously, look, it was great. You were there. The atmosphere was obviously incredible. It sounded like it on TV. I was coaching, we were training with the club, so I didn't get down to it. But is that something that can you see in the future going back to the Páirc? It looked incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think the whole occasion, just the being outside the stadium at the start, seeing the crowds coming in, the joy.
Like the weather was manky, and people still.
Yeah, the weather was terrible, and obviously it was a pretty daunting task coming up against a very strong, on paper, South African side who had 14 full internationals. So, given where Munster probably were and the confidence and maybe a bit nervous, that this was an occasion that they just had to get a performance and try and win the game, because I think they've had a fair bit of negativity and disappointment probably within their own group since the start of the season. So it was just had that feeling that it was going to be a special night again, and it turned out that way. So it's amazing. Yeah. They've got to try and harness that as best they can, and to have beaten New Zealand, Australia, and now South Africa is special. But look, at the end of the day, I think people want them to try and climb up the table, and they've used 57 players this season so far. I think I said 55 last week, but it's actually 57, which is a hell of an amount of players. But you could see a little bit of continuity in that performance the other night, and the fans who tweeted you were all pleased.
I think it was great. It looked like to me that shackles were off, and I think that when there's no pressure on, you can do things probably above your means in terms of you as a group. But Liam Sheehan tweeted in saying the venue was a great success. Munster will always be capable of a one-off performance like this. The question is, can we use it to kick on to produce this level of consistently? Tight five were fantastic, and the half-backs, particularly Healy, looked international class. No fear. Martin Bramall, unlike the Wasps game, they won't change back to a different game plan like under Van Gran. Further evolution of the new system was seen. Confidence will be high, and Connacht will be up for the Derby game. Healy responded to Crowley and controlled the game. We'll chat about that afterwards. Joe said, promising young squad coming through. Great to see a sellout crowd, even on a wet Thursday night, when money is tight for so many. Hopefully performances continue to build in the next block of games. Desmond O'Sullivan, fantastic night for Munster Rugby. The challenge now is to bank this performance and build on it game by game. John Lynch, very important that Munster reconnect with Cork fans this season. There's only 3 URC games in Musgrave Park, otherwise everything else happens in Limerick. That's an unhealthy balance and not helping to grow a fan base. No one wants to return to the old them versus us ways. We need to move forward. John came up with Munster seemed to play with a lack of fear in the Páirc last night. That night, not paralysed by double thought or overthinking. Who knows? Reminded me of the team that beat Wasps away last December, young and fearless, and never played together again. R.I.P. Big Jerry, a decent man. And just one or two more. Just we have some quality young lads coming through. A Dogbo looks like the future captain, and won't be long before he gets an Ireland call up at this rate. Could be a line in the not too distant future. So no pressure. We have some serious options at both halfback positions too. Tom Durkin, super evening. We walked straight from work in the city centre. Super passion and a high level of work rate shown throughout. Conditions were tricky and were dealt with admirable. Daly still showing strong form again. Let's hope European Cup displays are strong going forward. Victor Ford, Dogbo and Wycherley were outstanding. Wycherley cleanouts were off the charts. At one point, his own forklift to Munster South Africans, enabling try-scoring opportunity. Dogbo was Brad Thorne tough. when he hits a maul, it stops dead. Love to see that half-back combo get more minutes together. Just before we go on, there's a few more, but a couple of things. The half-back combination seems to have come up a lot in relation to the game. We obviously spoke about the young players and how well they did. But there have been lots of high hopes about Paddy Patterson on the back of a very good pre-season for him. Apparently he was trained very, very well, and we haven't seen a huge amount of him in URC. He started one game, didn't play the next game, and there was kind of questions around his decision making. I thought last Thursday night he was absolutely sensational, and he's Craig Casey-esque in terms of speed of the ball, that his decision making. I thought, his all around game I thought was really, really good. And on the back of that, because the ball was so quick, Healy then gets to play. And we talk a lot about the difference between Healy and this Crowley and this kind of rivalry that's probably going to go for another few years, and people will have different opinions on. Healy reminds me of an old school Rog S10 where he pins corners, a wonderful kicker, not a huge amount of explosiveness or speed, but really good understanding of the game and how to see it. And whereas Crowley plays at the coalface, he's a bit like Sexton. He plays at that line. He's different. He's explosive. He's got unbelievable footwork, and he's got a good picking game. I think over the next foreseeable future, when they play, it'll not really depend on. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this. It'll not really depend on actually their form. I think it'll depend on who they're playing.
Yeah, maybe. I think we'll talk about the performances in a minute, but it was encouraging to see not just those players that you mentioned, but a lot of the other players seem to just kind of excel and get the emotion. I keep mentioning it all the time, and it's probably something that people will get sick of me hearing, just getting up for the games. It sounds like something that's very easy to do. It's not. Getting your head mentally right and having that bit of spark inside you to go out and perform. And rugby's a physical game, so sometimes it doesn't work if you're easing your way into a game, particularly when you're under pressure. And I think we saw that from a lot of the players the other night. That's what pleased me the most. There was a lot of that fight, that aggression. They looked fitter. They looked some of the players. Ben Healy did have a really good performance. The last time he played wasn't so good. So that can happen, players. When you're in pivotal positions like scrum half and 10, you're going to have a lot of involvements in the game. You're going to hold the ball a lot. You're going to make lots of decisions up on 60, 70, 80 times. So there's going to be a mistake or two. But I think the body language of Ben Healy was spot on. That's where he needs to be. Just to finish off the tweets, there was another tweet from a friend of mine, Pat O'Donnell, from New York, Long Island, who listens into the pod all the time. He just said that he was in an Irish bar Thursday night and with lots of Munster fans watching the game. And well, it wasn't Thursday night for them; it was Thursday afternoon, I would say. And it was brilliant. There was loads of Munster fans got together in New York to watch the game. So, going back to what I said at the start, I don't think anyone in Munster, for anyone outside of Munster that's gone, God, Munster are blowing this out of proportion, or people are getting too excited by this. We know that it's been a tough start to the season. We know where Munster sit in the table, and we've spoken a lot about that and the reasons for that and the cause for optimism. So I think on Thursday night, if it's harnessed right and they get that understanding of where they need to be more consistently, obviously, you get another match under your belt. You got a little bit of more cohesion with these players. Well, it is something they can build on. So just
going
say something
to you, right?
Yep.
Fergal O'Shea tweeted in and thought it was a really good point. I hope the Páirc is the earmark for one big game per season, either a European Cup match or Leinster. Announce it in August so the excitement builds. #Munster in the Páirc. Make it a tradition, like Leinster on Stephen's Day, and it become a special occasion in the Munster calendar.
And there's relevance to what he's saying. I'm a tip man, so I'm right in the middle. And
I'm from Waterford, so
going back to those conversations with Jerry Holland, with Declan Kidney in 2004, and a number of the senior players when we sat down, I was kind of in the middle, even though I felt that we had to come together in one centre, whether that be Cork, Limerick, or Charleville, or even Tipperary, wherever. We needed to be together to train more, and that obviously happened. So there's a little bit of this Limerick Cork kind of stuff has come up, and it's come up because Munster have struggled, and people are looking, and rightly so. There's a lot of questions being asked about, certain things in Munster, the development, where the club is going, all that kind of stuff. And I met so many people the other night from Cork saying, "Oh, there needs to be more games in Cork. There needs to be more games in Páirc Uí Chaoimh." And of course there does. And this should and will happen again, hopefully. But then I meet people from Limerick saying all their Cork friends and people from Cork are reminding them then of the atmosphere. And there's great slagging going on between the two. But I think, yes, I don't know if you can earmark it in the calendar. I think the only way this will happen going forward is if you get to the latter stages of Europe and you have to have a bigger stadium and you can't play in your home venue in semi-finals. We saw
my big fear there is
our quarterfinals. It was the Ed Sheeran concert last year, but if there is a need to get more people there, and actually from a bread and butter point of view, more finances, to get a bigger crowd in, it's definitely an option and should be looked at again.
You're looking at an April, May time then, and there's no way the GAA will allow that. You know what I mean, and that's where we're going to be under pressure for that. I think
if there's a big check at the end of it, they might try and make it work. Niamh, we better move on because the occasion was amazing. The result was brilliant. Being the devil's advocate, South Africa were disappointing with their attack. It was a really difficult night, but we know and knew what they were going to do, how strong they were going to be. They're very, very powerful men. And there was periods of the game where Munster were hanging on and under all sorts of pressure. But I think that's the stuff they can really get out of the game, the way they dug in for each other and they defended. They gave away a lot of penalties on those situations because they were under so much pressure. The scrum was under a bit of pressure, and I think they managed their way through that and did really well. But for me, and we go positive negatives every week in this podcast, I just want to focus on the positives here and a quick summation of obviously the positives of the standout players. And the one thing that jumps out, and I'm sure we've spoken about it before we come on, is the attack. There was real glimpses and signs that passes were sticking. Zebo scores the try. Shane Daly's try was brilliant. And there was many other occasions where in wet conditions and slippery ball at Munster were these passes that weren't sticking in the first 7 games of the URC were starting to, see some fruition there.
Yeah, hugely. I thought there were so many positives in that game, from the build-up and then the actual game itself. I thought the back row were really, really good. Just the work rate was off the charts. It was the line speed. It was their intensity. Their catch pass. I think, there was lots of people annoyed and upset and trying to figure out, about that emerging Ireland tour and what its function was. And I think Shane Daly's confidence gone to another level this year, and I think that he's playing so well. He just looks incredibly energetic. His work rate's really, really good. They're coming off his wing all the time, but it's also his ability on the ball. His footwork and contact is so good. We're seeing a little bit of kind of explosiveness, and I thought Mike Haley was really, really good. And there was I just felt like there was really so much positives. They looked to move the ball. Probably the biggest thing that came out of it is, how much Munster had been missing Anton Frisch at the start of the season. How incredible was he? That offload to set the game going, and unfortunately, he looks like he picked up an injury in that game and could be out for a while. But that to me is where this squad are going in terms of their attack. Do you understand? Like, even when everybody comes back from Ireland and everybody's fit and ready, that's where they're going. It'll be an Anton Frisch, probably Fekitoa in midfield, and you know what I mean. And players that we've been used to starting and playing all the time won't be playing all the time because they're an inability to be able to probably carry out this time of game plan in terms of the way the game is evolving. It's all action, it's all energy, and fitness levels need to be off the roof. Your basics, your catch pass, your ability to hold your feet, explosiveness after you catch the ball, your ability to be able to offload in and out of contact. I just think there was loads and loads of positives, but yeah, I think Anton Frisch, Munster fans would have been really, really happy to see him finally back on the pitch.
Yeah, he looked really good. He looked to have something different there, and we haven't seen. Obviously, he's been away with Emerging Ireland, had an injury, so I think he was really good. I thought Rory Scannell played really well.
Yeah,
12,
he does. Yeah,
and moved the ball. Wasn't just kind of holding on to it and kind of running up for Zebo's try. He did that lovely little wraparound pass. Mike Haley looked to be, really, really good in his counter attack as well. And
like
up front, I think, Kieran McDonald deserves a lot of credit. He's been with the club for only a week or something before that, a week and a half. I thought he was brilliant. Dogbo, and the players, not just the players who start, Roman Salanoa, Dermot Barron, Josh Ritchley, under so much pressure, such a big South African A-side front row.
Dermot Barron's really come to the fore, hasn't he, over the last few weeks?
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been really good, and I think his ability around the field as well, and the overall contribution. But look, they look like a tight-knit pack. John Hodnett, the amount of tackles he makes, the effectiveness of those tackles. Gavin Coombs looked a little bit frustrated coming off, had moments in the game, and I'm sure maybe that A game is still probably lingering a little bit. He had some very good carries in the game, but overall as a pack, I think they worked really hard together. So Dennis Leamy would be really pleased, and the bench.
And I love that they tried to move the ball. Like, the weather was so bad. But
it's the only way they could play, Niamh, and that's what pleased people. You weren't going to run out over South Africa or maul them or out.
But it was sticking to the process, even when South Africa got that first try and stuff. You're thinking, and the scrum had been under pressure, and you're going.
Yeah, but it wasn't. We're talking about attack here, and a big positive. It wasn't just going from winger to winger to winger, over and back for the sake of it, shipping the ball on. I think their overall shape and phase play is much better. There's a much better work rate, and obviously the fitness levels have improved. Of people getting back in shape, and then South Africa were quite narrow at time, and they were finding a lot of space in the wider channels, and the impact of the bench as well. So right across the board, I think it was a really positive thing, and that's what I said. I just thought, God, it's lovely. It's nice for these players to see them just kind of hugging and laughing and joking and smiling at the end of a match that, they've had a tough start. There's been a lot of probably long faces in dressing rooms there, a lot of tough conversations around the way they've played and mistakes and errors, their discipline at times, the execution. So it was really nice to see that. We've got to move on. It was a brilliant performance. We'll talk a little just at the end. We'll talk about it now. 26th of November, Connacht come to Thomond Park.
Yeah.
Well, dare we say it, and we've probably said this in the last 3 or 4 games in the URC, Munster have to, and it's not going to be easy, they've got to try and get a win here for obvious reasons. It's a home game, and the URC points are badly needed. Connacht will be feeling the same, but certainly Connacht got one over them a few weeks ago in Galway. And then on the 2nd of December, they're away, a very tough game away in Edinburgh. And then the next game they play is the 26th of December. So these block of URC games, there's 3 coming up between now and Stephen's Day. They've got to at least win 2 of those, I think. And look, but at the end of the day, I don't think they can look too far ahead. It's the Connacht game at home, and Connacht will come all guns a-blazing the week after next. So it's going to be an interesting one. Can Munster, and a lot of the tweets and messages, can Munster build on what they did on Thursday night in the park? We'll wait and see.
I think you're coming in. Sorry, I think you're coming into training this week on the back of that, bouncing, like almost wishing that you had a game this weekend, because the confidence will be huge for that group. But this will be Andy Friend's last visit to Thomond Park. They'll have their own emotional attachment to this game, so Munster will be, will need to really get to the pitch. I do think Munster will win that. I think Munster are a different kettle of fish when they're at home than when they play away. So
we'll see. We'll see. It's Connacht have been down to Thomond Park and had a nice bit of success against Munster in the last couple of occasions. It's a really important game, no doubt about it. Andy Friend, yeah, you mentioned it there. He's announced he's going back home at the end of the season. So I think he's been brilliant for Connacht. Obviously, very, very popular guy. And we won't wish him well next week against Munster, but after that we will for the rest of the season. Our gold star of the week, Niamh, this week, I think you could pick lots of Munster players. We've struggled in the last number of weeks to be finding gold stars, but I think we both agree in this. Paddy Patterson, he was outstanding. A really brilliant performance.
His interview afterwards was even better, to be fair.
It was, yeah, it was brilliant. And one of the tweeters there, and somebody actually texted me and said, please don't give Paddy Patterson any media training. We loved the raw interview afterwards. And he threw in a few F-bombs. And I wasn't sure even he knew that he did, because he looked like, I don't think it was a case of I don't care. I just think he got lost in the moment, and there was a few F-bombs in there. It was 9:30, 10:15 at night. So I think, I don't think anyone took any offense, and it was a raw, emotional interview. But his performance, I think, was really outstanding. His speed of delivery, the way he was bouncing in and out of rucks, bringing players into it, hitting runners, keeping the ball alive. I think this guy his ceiling he's really impressed a lot of people. And I think that one on Thursday night, that performance, because we hear stuff coming out of the camp about how impressive he was in pre-season, as you said. But I think this one will do his confidence the world of good, that he's got the player of the match, and he's performed here in a big game that there's a lot of eyes on, shall we say. So I think he's going to, he could push on and go up the ladder and get involved with Irish squads going forward.
We need him to anyway. Like, I'm not sure what the underlying story with Conor Murray is, but it didn't look good when he was running through and pulled up for that injury. He's obviously out of the next this game this weekend with the international. So, like, how long is he going to be out? So Munster are going to need him. They're going to need Paddy Patterson to be performing and pushing Craig Casey, over the next few weeks to create that competition, because it's pivotal. It's so important.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and he's very, very well deserving of the gold star of the week. So well done, Paddy. Don't change the interview. Don't let Fiona get hold of you and kind of fix the way you do your interviews afterwards. But look, it was harmless, and I'm sure we won't be getting the F-bombs the next day Paddy is on, if he gets player of the game again. But he was outstanding. I thought he was brilliant, and he really epitomised the energy that Munster brought to the game. So lots of positives, and lots of I think a really important special night for Munster, and it's amazing. And I think we're both probably in agreement. And I think anyone who knows their rugby knows that Munster have got to try and get league wins, and that's what it's about now going forward. But I think it was just for the coaches as well, and for Graham Rowntree, and the rest of the coaches there. I think they probably are feeling the pain most here, because when you're trying to coach this team and there's been so many injuries, so many changes. I was looking down from the commentary position at the end of the game, and I just went, just enjoy the moment. I
don't know if you saw the gif going around of one of the tries, and all coaching box just jumps up. So Prendy is going ballistic and everything. And Dennis Leamy just doesn't, no emotion, just sits there and just starts typing away on his laptop as if he's just like, it's just hilarious. That's Leamy, I suppose, in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, but inside he would have been,
I know that,
obviously, but that's really him. Yeah, he has the kind of poker face on, and Liam's played like that sometimes too. If you scored a try, it's like, get back to the halfway line. What do we do next? And one thing just before we finish, I think, and the players won't need me to say this because I'm sure the coaches will cover this. I think getting this emotional pitch right is important going forward. They're going to get a very determined, physical, aggressive Connacht team coming to Thomond Park, and people will sense vulnerability and opportunity to kind of get one over Munster. And even though the results have been poor, it's still a big scalp for most teams, for all teams who play against them, and they want to beat Munster. So, the young players like Adogbo and John Hodnett and Diarmuid Barron, even though Josh Wycherley, these guys, just the physical kind of collisions and the physicality of that game will I'm not saying it'll do them the world of good, but it will benefit them going forward. That there's nothing going to be, I don't think, as physical and as powerful in the URC. Although when you play the South African teams, yes, you'll
same thing, yeah.
It's similar. But this was a really, really physical, intense kind of pressure all through the game, and they stood up really well. And they've got to try and, improve their game, improve their fitness, improve the accuracy, and all that kind of stuff. So, well done to them. It was brilliant to be there, and it was a brilliant occasion, and it was something that, as a tip man, I stood in the terraces in Páirc Uí Chaoimh many times at hurling matches, and I just couldn't believe I was there. Like, obviously, you're it's happening for a period of time, but when you're there in the middle and you're thinking, God, this is just, it's a surreal feeling, and it had that kind of feel right from the start, and it was a really special night, and it was brilliant, and those players will remember for a long time. Somebody sent a message on YouTube the other day saying, "Oh, look, it's not more than kind of bar stool stories in 30 years. There was no URC points, and people are blowing it out of proportion." But I just thought to myself, isn't that a lovely feeling for any of these players, even if they don't make Europe or qualify for the playoffs, in 30 years to be saying, God, wasn't that a lovely night in Cork in 2022 when we beat South Africa? So there is special memories there. We're not going to, just before we finish, we're going to mention Ireland-Fiji. It was a difficult game, lots of mistakes. They play Australia this week. I think one of the big positives, not just for Ireland, but from a Munster point of view, is Jack Crowley coming on. He looked comfortable. He looked composed. We speak about confidence, self-belief. There's a possibility that Jack Crowley could start on Saturday. I know Johnny Sexton has a knock as well, but I presume, and I think he will be back. But Joey Carberry's ruled out of the game. So Ross Byrne has been called up. But Jack Crowley looks like he'll be on the bench on Saturday, which I think is really kind of, he looked comfortable, and there was a lot of applause for him after the game. So well done to Jack Crowley. He was brilliant. Rog put a tweet up the other day with him as a little child getting a photo with Rog. So I think it's really special. And it's a big thing for Munster, I think, as well, that he's excelling on now, and he's in this group, and he's impressed a lot of people. So we'll look forward to looking back at the Australia game. Hopefully Ireland finish with a strong performance against Australia at the weekend, and then obviously looking ahead to that Connacht game, which is going to be really important going forward. So that's it for episode 45, the Red 78. To make sure you get your podcast straight to your phone every week, just search for the Red 78 and press subscribe. And don't forget to get in touch with us. You can either tweet Niamh or myself, or leave a message, tweet at Rugby Channel 15, or leave a comment on YouTube. So that's it for this week, Niamh. It was nice to have a positive podcast this time, to be able to look at something that was really special, and it was. It was a lovely situation with the players, and I think they deserved it. They've put a lot of work in, and it hasn't worked out for them, and nobody's getting carried away. I've probably said that 3 or 4 times. I'm not allowing myself to get carried away, but I think there is optimism, and there is cause for that optimism. And hopefully now they can start claiming some league points and get a bit of consistency and cohesion in their performances going forward. It's going to be difficult, but it was certainly nice to see that on Thursday night. So thanks again, and sure, we'll chat to you next week.
Thanks, Quinny.
The Red 78 with Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.